I hope you were able to experience some sort of inner relaxation as well as outer relaxation. I forgot to mention that I look like a pirate, and that's because I've had eye surgery. Not a big deal, they're taking care of it. It has changed what I do every day, but that's okay. I'm experiencing the pleasure of really being inward. And as I have that 4 or 5 days now of complete silence, I have been able to really listen. I'm not easily sort of chasing after my angry thoughts or my negative thoughts. I find myself with much more space to hold whatever happens. If I like it or don't like it, it's really not the point. I just notice what happens. And this is a freeing. It's freedom. The freedom of not being caught in our mind. And then also, if I do get caught, noticing. It's like, oh, look, I'm thinking of that again. I decided not to think about that because thinking about it seems to just make tightness and tension. Without judging, just allowing it to go, oh yeah, that's right. It's like simply letting things come and simply letting things go. So today, as we end our last teaching, just a second here, I gotta help Molly. Oh. There we go. As we end our last of the series, we're going to end with discussion about forgiveness. And what I really want to talk about in this particular class is how to create inwardly the conditions for forgiveness to actually happen, where it's not just a thought, it's an experience. So in my experience of saying I'm sorry or making amends, it does no good and oftentimes is more destructive if I have not been able to change the behavior. So I may regret the behavior. Oh, I'm so sorry that I was angry with you. I said harsh words. I can admit those things and I can say I'm sorry or I have regret. But what is far more important for ourselves and others, to believe in ourselves and to also for others to believe in us, is to change the behavior, is to note the behavior. These are the causes and conditions for my mind to be tight. These are the causes and conditions for my mind to dwell on negativity. And then realizing what you can add to that container, your life, to make the causes and conditions that allow forgiveness to flow easily with ease and calm from the heart and mind. I want to begin by reading from His Holiness the Karmapa just a little bit about the value of community. Human beings are profoundly shaped by the communities in which we participate. Before we join any particular community, we are already a part of the human community. I'm going to pause there because it is not how we normally feel. We feel that our familial community or our friend community or our local community is the essence of community, and we forget, and this is so important, that we are a human community first and foremost. Each of us is far more deeply marked by being human than we are by our membership in any other community. So that's worth pausing and actually thinking about. thinking about what it means to you to be part of the human community and allowing that to be the most important. So I think that's all I want to read about that. He says the basic responsibility we have as human beings holds priority over any claims made on us by any smaller or more local community. Before anything else, each of us should feel a responsibility to our humanness, our human community. So it points to these unhealthy dynamics that we build when we value our friend community over the human community. So what happens is it's this unhealthy response to this is more important, our priorities to the things we like and the people that are close to us, and then alienating ourselves from the whole of human community. What power, what feeling of belonging we could actually embrace if that experience of human community became our priority. So I wanted to start with that. And I also want to bring in one more very important part about being human is the resilience that is within our capacity. And this resilience that I'm talking about it comes from aligning ourselves with the truth of uncertainty, of not knowing. So if we can embrace the uncertainty, the unknowing, and allow that flow and that flexibility, our resilience, our ability to keep a semblance of calm, at ease at all times, will develop and become more and more strong. So power is not in certainty. Power is embracing uncertainty. So what sort of things would you place in the container that you'd like to build where forgiveness can emulate? What would the container look like? And your answers to that are very important to me. So I have come up with 10 that I'd like to talk about or discuss. And then allow yourself the discipline, remembering that discipline is remembering what's important. So cultivating the discipline of any one of these 10 things in a way that you begin to foster this inner forgiveness that can then extend outwardly. So the first of these conditions is to choose one practice, one meditation practice, and keep at it. Our tendency is to have one practice, and then when we don't like that, we pick another practice, and then when we don't like that, we pick another practice. The problem with doing that is that we don't allow ourselves the deepening of not liking, of embracing the part of us that feels like a darkness or a dislike. So if we actually keep with the same practice and go through that dislike, go through that sort of feeling of this isn't working or I don't like this, and if we make our way through that just by continually embracing the same practice over and over and over again, we have like a breakthrough into our practice becoming that enlightening experience. So that's the first. The second is to meditate daily. Even if it's before you go to bed at night, consciously taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. So that's the very bottom. And see if you can come somewhere just a little bit above that on a daily basis. Above meaning 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. See if you can develop a meditation practice that is a daily practice, not missing one day. It's like not missing because of its importance. It's like so important that you allow yourself that freedom of sitting and being with your practice. So the first was, so you're remembering, right? The first was picking one practice and staying with it. The second is meditating daily. The third is allowing yourself to see that all situations, every situation is workable. We tend to get to these places where we feel stuck or we feel like that's not workable, but allowing yourself just the ease of staying with it, similarly to staying with your practice, but it's just the knowing. So that knowing might feel like hope, perhaps. Hope that everything will work out. Everything will work out. Everything is workable. Hope is a verb, that happens when your sleeves are rolled up. It's a condition of our willingness to act, not to react, but to act out of our compassion, our loving kindness, and our wisdom. Hope is the ability to act but not react. Letting the mind remembering the fact that all situations are workable. This too will pass, people say. There's all sorts of things, but allowing yourself to sink into that knowing, not just intellectually, but the experiential capacity of that particular thing. So that's 3. The fourth one is one of my favorites. And the fourth one is patience. And I wanted to read from, so I read from the Marpa's book, Interconnection. And now I'm reading from another book called Dipama. And I'm reading from page 131. The funny thing about having one eye bandaged is you have no depth perception. So I've been sort of blundering through, kind of knocking things over or walking into things. So please bear with me. Patience is one of the most important virtues for developing mindfulness and concentration. Patience is forged by constantly meeting the edge. If you stay with your meditation practice, it is inevitable that difficulties will arise. In the most challenging situations, merely showing up, being present, may be all that is possible, and it may be enough. So notice the words may, allowing yourself the possibility. So there's a story that's being told about an Indian woman, the grandmother, her daughter, and the daughter's daughter. So there's 3 generations here. And the daughter talks about her mother's patience. This is the day before her mother died. Risha, the daughters, the youngest of the three, was 11 at the time and was misbehaving when I was getting ready for work. I got very angry. I was trying to hit him, and he hid behind my mother. So it wasn't a daughter, it was a son. And he hid behind my mother. She wouldn't let me touch him. I was very upset and cried to her, "You don't know how mad he has made me. I want to punish him." My mother came to me with a mild, slow voice and said, "Daughter, you too were silly once. I did not throw you out of the house for being silly." So patience is a lifetime practice. It's something to be developed. We can have times of our lives that are very easygoing, and our patience is a felt experience. But then when we're challenged, our patience seems to disappear or be at the very edge. And it is going to that edge of difficulty and actually cultivating patience, which is the wisdom aspect. It's easy to be patient when things are going well, but patience is really cultivated and made stronger when things are not going well, and we choose a pattern of behavior that is positive to our well-being and the well-being of others. Patience. In the next series, we'll talk about patience in much more detail. So the fifth of the aspects to cultivate, so the first being picking one practice, the second being that we meditate daily, the third understanding that all situations are workable, and the fourth being the cultivation of patience, being able to accept things as they are. The fifth is reminding ourselves that our mind is all stories. Our mind is all stories, not some stories. What arises in our mind, every single thing that arises in our mind is a story. You might think, well, wait a minute, what about developing that mind of freedom? The mind of freedom exists separate of the stories. Our mind, this one level of mind that we're familiar with, is all stories. The expansive quality of our mind is separated by from all those stories. When we simply see that those stories have no relevance on the actual mind itself, we have freedom. We see it's just a story we're telling ourselves. It has no plausibility. It has no relative importance. It's not saying that everything is unimportant, but it's that freedom from the knowing that our mind is all stories. So contemplate that before we respond negatively to it. Think about it. The sixth aspect of having a mind that can hold forgiveness is not allowing yourself to get angry. There is absolutely nothing that is improved by your anger. Anger only makes a situation more intense, more bitter, more negative. We have to really decide no anger. And as you decide that, when you move your mind away from anger until you're able to stay with and actually transform anger into this very beautiful patience, it's the mind that will not entertain anger. When anger arises, we think, no anger. Not that whatever it is isn't happening. We're not going to allow anger to fill our mind. The process of doing that is like a lifetime of practice, yet it is something that keeps very important. If your mind keeps ruminating about something, I really don't like that happened, I really, and keep reading that email, keep sort of wanting to press send on your text message. So, not allowing anger. The seventh conducive condition is fun. We need to be able to laugh. We need to be able to see the lightness that arises. So having dogs, it makes it a lot easier for me to see their silliness, their craziness. Both of them are sound asleep right now, and as you know from other teachings, that is not always how it goes, but that's what's happening right now. And I can even laugh thinking about that. Laughing at yourself, wanting things to be other than they are. Fun. Going outside and taking a walk, looking at nature, seeing its beauty, letting yourself just do something for no other reason than it feels good. It's fun. It's fun. Doing something absolutely silly, like putting a cup upside down on top of your head and walking around with it on. That'll cause some eyes to turn, but it's fun. It's just fun. The eighth conducive condition is to live simply. We've talked about this many times before, but contentment arises, the ease, the calm, the contentment arises from living simply. So this past week, I've had nothing to do, nowhere to go, and I don't have a lot of things, so I'm simply drinking the tea that I have, one box. I'm just simply drinking that. Instead of having a variety of 10 boxes, I don't think about it. That's the tea I'm drinking until that tea is gone, and I'll get another box of tea, or maybe not. But just living simply, not having 10 pairs of shoes to put on, just one pair of boots, one pair of slippers, one robe. It's just living simply. Being able to do that, I'm going to read on page 135 from this book. Living simply, a very simple life is good for everything. Too much luxury is a hindrance to our practice. So you might think, how is it a hindrance to our practice? Well, one of them, it breeds the type of laziness that takes us away from, it's like the laziness of comfort, takes us away from our main purpose. Another type of distraction, or another way of looking at the hindrances, it's a distraction. Having so many choices is a distraction. You can just spend time trying to figure out which one you want instead of just simply a cup of tea. So you live with the greatest simplicity. You refrain from socializing. Or I find that refraining from socializing really keeps my life simple. Doesn't mean you can't have friends, but we don't have to just be social butterflies. We can actually pay attention to what's most important to us, and that is being a part of the human community. That's the most important. Am I adding my humanness to this human community in a way that will benefit the community and myself? So simply living simply. Yeah, I want to read a lot more about that, but the ninth condition is being appreciative, feeling like that you live a very sacred and blessed experience, that appreciation of the very sacredness of life, but it's being able to see that generosity that comes from appreciation. Please contemplate that. That's the ninth condition. And the last condition is to constantly remind yourself that life is like a circle. There's a beginning, there's what we call this life, there's an end, there's a beginning, next life, and to understand the continuum of things. The continuum of things will give us a better perspective of our place in the world, and also let go of the sort of importance that we feel of I, mine, me, into just letting go, just seeing everything as this interconnected flow, a river that goes by. So those 10 conditions, inner conditions, if we develop those, forgiveness actually arises. You cannot force yourself to forgive, but you can practice cultivating the conditions for forgiveness to arise. I want you to contemplate all 10 of those. Let me go over them all again if you don't mind. There's picking one practice and staying with it. Meditating daily is the second. Third, thinking that whatever situation arises in your life and the life of all people is workable. Keeping that understanding. The fourth is the cultivation of patience, acceptance. The fifth is reminding ourselves that everything in our mind is a story. Beyond stories is freedom. Recognizing, seeing the story. That's not a story, that just is. You can think, but then just having enough on board to be curious. Is that a story? Yes, that's a story too. So all mind is stories. The sixth is not allowing anger. There's hostility, there's anger, there's agitation. Not allowing that. Finding it as it arises immediately and catching it. Not allowing that to run your life. The seventh is to have fun. To have that lightness, a joy. The eighth is living simply. The ninth is cultivating the sacredness, the appreciation, the blessings of life. And the 10th is seeing everything as a circle, arising, existing, dissolving. Seeing all of life as a circle. And from that conducive conditions, forgiveness for ourselves and others arises. We dedicate this teaching and this series for others. May others transform their fear into strong, unshakable faith. And may that faith develop into forgiveness. The confidence of knowing into allowing, forgiving. Thank you.